You are listening to Beyond the Verse, a Star Citizen podcast. A show dedicated to Cloud Imperium games, Star Citizen, and Squadron 42. Whether you fight, explore, unite, and or trade, we bring you news, updates, interviews, reviews, and analysis. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a pour of Radegast, and join us as we go Beyond the Verse.
Launch sequence activated.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Beyond the Verse, Star Citizen podcast. I'm your host, Sulyce, and welcome into episode 74. It has been a pretty eventful week. Not if you looked on paper, not if you looked at This Week in Star Citizen, but just holistically, the things that have been happening behind the scenes, the things that have been happening with yours truly. And I want to kind of start with that. But first, the segments for today's episode. We, of course, will go through from the community. There's a lot of comments, a lot of polls to get through, so thank you for your engagement as always. We'll get into the tech preview channel that happened yesterday. We'll get into upcoming ship and vehicle changes that might drive a little bit of drama, might make you happy, it might make you sad or frustrated, but we'll go through that quickly. Of course, as always, we will watch the Inside Star Citizen together, which the big news there is the Zeus is coming out in 324.2, not .1, but .2, and the changes to the MFDs, so your flying experience really across all ships. We also had a Whitley's Guide to the Prowler that we're not going to read through because I wanted to save time to go through the Squadron 42 monthly report. It's a short monthly report, but it is super important, especially if I'm onto something as I have been for this entire year and think Squadron 42 is going to be huge for CitizenCon this year. So again, I hope this finds everybody well. Welcome in. Man, if you haven't seen it, more than likely you have. There was a phenomenal conversation I was a part of. So episode 73 happened Friday morning. It's already one of our top episodes that you have watched or you have listened to. So I appreciate that engagement. We're over 500 listens in the first week. I'm very happy with those numbers. And obviously that's going to continue to grow, but go give that a listen. But immediately after that, I was part of Space Tomatoes podcast, and on that show was Morphologist, the astrohistorian Void Dude, myself, and of course Space Tomato. And that was a phenomenal conversation, albeit more depressing and maybe more critical than what you're usually used to hearing from Sulyce, from me here at this podcast. But it's real talk. It is raw reaction to how we are, the four of us, feeling about 4.0 and about these delays that are happening. So I want you to go listen to it. I think it's good information. I continue to try to detach my personal and emotion from this podcast itself. I think you deserve the news, the analysis, the reviews, but I think I draw the line at punching my chair. So I love Salty Mike. Let's not get into that, but I think that's a funny dynamic. But I try to give you the facts, but this was an opportunity for me to be raw, for me to be able to react and give you my 2 cents. So maybe a different side of Sulyce, but I encourage you to go listen to it. Great concepts, great conversations. And then we're recording very late today. It's midday on Friday. I usually get this out by the time I'm recording right now. And that's because of work. No, I'm not going to talk to you about my work and what I do, but good Lord, this is quite the season for me to be going through. So I own a product for Amazon. Literally, I own it from cradle to grave. And it's not only in the United States, but it's also in Canada, the EU, like 5 marketplaces in the EU, and now we're expanding to Japan. So my hands are a little tied. Not to mention I speak in front of 300 vendors in the next couple of weeks in Dallas, Texas, like representing this product. So I'm doing the best I can. All right, let's get into Star Citizen, y'all. Let's get into from the community.
Incoming message.
Alrighty. So, and I say this every time, I might want to change how I preface. But at the beginning, nay, the end. At the end of every show over on Spotify, we ask you a poll and we read through your comments. And again, there's no guidance to the comments, but we let it just receive your comments, just receive your feedback. So let's get into the final stretch and Star Citizen's question. Did you purchase the Citizen Con goodies pack? We had 18 responses, and we had 66.7%, so a third, two-thirds. Two-thirds said no, that $30 was either too much or not worth the items for Citizen Con's goodie pack. And then, of course, the other third said yes, that they did buy it. Hey, your money. That is your money. I'm not saying that you should or should not get the goodies pack. I personally, I like the exclusivity. I would much rather spend $30 on the exclusivity of the goodies pack than, say, anything you could get throughout the year, like the Red Alert paint, the armor set in the pledge store, as one example. So this is like my one chance, right? And so maybe I won't use every item. Maybe it'll be rare that I use one of the weapon systems that comes in this goodie pack. But it's the fact that I have it. Call it FOMO, call it whatever you want to. That's why I bought one. Let's go to the comment section. We had quite the engagement, like I said. We had 8 responses. We're going to go through these somewhat quick, of course, giving them my due diligence to respond if they merit such. But we go to TJ first. So, quote, I think paints are important to most. Let me pause. So a lot of these responses are a continuation of this debate around paint and whether or not it matters to you and whether it doesn't. I feel like there's like another clarification coming. It's not that they don't matter. It's just I'm gonna stop clarifying. Let's go to the quote. I think paints are important to most, but most aren't wanting to engage in microtransactions, seeing as they most likely already spent a good amount on a ship or two, or more in most cases. As far as the ship showdown, you're most likely not getting the paint for your ship you own because it's almost always a very expensive ship. No one I know cares. Love your show. Keep it up, homie. I appreciate your words, TJ, at the end there. Yeah, you could argue that a couple of years ago, the MPUV, I believe, won the ship showdown. It's not necessarily that expensive. One of the 4 of last year, it's like the Vulture isn't that expensive. I mean, it is more expensive than a game, if you will. But like the Corsair winning last year, that's like $250 worth of a ship. And so whether you buy it in game with UEC, which I think is the alternative to your point, you would have that paint for the ship that you buy in game down the road. So yeah, I recognize where you're coming from, and actually I agree. Most of the time expensive ships do win, but again, you're getting these paints forever, quote unquote. You're going to get these paints, so if you do end up renting or buying a ship in game using UEC, boom, there you go. To Call Me Teach writes, I'm one who enjoys customizing my space whip. I like having paints on my ships, especially ones that are rare, like the concierge paints. It's just like having a character customizer. I assume that people don't just play the game with the basic male figure. There's a good majority of people who made a character to fit them. So no, I don't agree that people don't care about ship paints. I think people don't care about buying the paints, and they just want a spray can for it. Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm in agreement with you there. I think for me, not a clarification, but I think for me, maybe the cause and effect is like, it's almost like reputation in the game, right? We play this game, we go into cargo hauling, we go into bounty hunting, and we're always trying to get our reputation up. But my question is always, what's the point? If the next patch resets it, we know we're going to get a full wipe when 4.0 comes out. Right, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt. But let's say 324.1 or .2 wipes us clean of reputation and all these items. You don't really care about reputation. So when we're live and like right now playing, like I could care less. I don't really care if I have a senior rank. in cargo hauling. I have friends that do. I have a really good friend who actually sacrificed a lot last night in our org to give us a senior rank mission to do as an org. So by all means, I'm not saying you're wrong, but for me personally, like reputation doesn't matter because it all just kind of goes away. So for me, it's kind of like that with paint, and it's kind of like that with upgrading my ships, period. Like if you lose those items that you spend a lot of UEC on, it's like, what's the point? What's the point? Now my org is listening to me wanting to kill me right now because I may or may not have upgraded my C2. So I didn't upgrade my C2, did not put a quantum drive on it. So we took like 30 minutes flying in between drop locations for the cargo hauling mission. Yeah, my org hates me, but that's fine. Let's move on. So I think, like, for me, this is me. I don't necessarily go through the process of changing my paint every time I call my ship. If my ship comes with that paint, like for instance, the Fortuna pack, my constellation, well, that's a Phoenix, but my like 600i will default. It like stays with the Fortuna paint. I don't have to go in and manually change it. So of course I'm going to fly around with Fortuna paint on my 600i. And the Hammerhead, as another example, it comes out with green. I don't have to customize it to make it green. But had that not be automated, I don't know. I probably wouldn't go through the pain of changing it if I'm just going to have to do it every single time I call my ship, when it blows up and when I have to reset. Voxelden writes, personally, I care paints more than cows. I just think there aren't many quote-unquote good paints for many ships. Best in show skins in the past have been pink. I'd like to see some battle damage paints, racing stripes, flames, more military or quote realistic styles. Now I'm with you on the battle damage paints. I think that would be pretty badass, honestly. Like if you could get me an Eclipse, like I love the Eclipse. When we do any sort of group play, I love being the eyes and ears, reconnaissance and surveillance, the lead team. I like being in the Eclipse. So give me some war-torn, paint jobs or liveries. I know somebody's listening and for that. It's not livery, it's livery. Okay, I got you. But the war-torn paint on an Eclipse or a Hammerhead or on a Redeemer, I think would look pretty sick. I will say, like, I've liked the realism of the paints. You are right. There's like a best in show. I think last year's best in show was like blue, green, purple kind of combination. Any sort of Alien Week paint is always really out there. But for the most part, like if you look at the paint jobs that have come out with the Peregrine, or like all the Saber variants, all the Zeus variants that you're going to see in the next couple of minutes, those are pretty legit colors. I could see in real life, I could see a cargo hauler being blue with yellow accents. Absolutely. But I do think you're right that there are a lot that are just really out there. My question is, do we think at some point you'll be able to customize your ship, which basically makes all of this worthless? Like you're getting all these liveries, all these paints, and you're going to apply them. But like, if you could just customize and make it whatever you want it to be, why are we buying paints? Dakota Riley, quote, I really am disappointed how doom and gloom a lot of the community has been recently, that every piece of news, even the good, is negative. Am I happy I'll get the Zeus sooner? Hell yeah. Am I excited for the new Argo mech? Sure am. Jumptown and the 324 bugs are probably the worst things going on, and 324 has gotten better every day. It's really an exciting time for the game overall, and what a sad day today. We lost a legend. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. So for those of you who are unaware, James Earl Jones is best known for his acting role in Field of Dreams. At least I loved him in Field of Dreams. No, he was the Darth Vader in Star Wars. So he was the voice of Darth Vader, and of course he's known for other things as well. Sandlot, I think he was the neighbor in Sandlot. But yeah, really sad to see him go. He had one of those iconic voices that you would recognize if you heard it. So I agree with you. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Sorely missed. For the rest of it, yeah, I agree. And we talked a little bit about that on Space Tomatoes podcast. It is very doom and gloom. It is where's 4.0? Thanks for the mech, but what's next? It's this kind of, and we've talked about it many times on this podcast, but it's this never satisfied approach to really life in general. But towards this game specifically, like, hey, thanks for giving me the Zeus sooner. Where the hell's 4.0? And when 4.0 comes out, okay, great. Is Nyx up next? Is Terra coming up? Like, it's this, always ever wanting perspective. And I think we just have to be able to filter that. So if you're a consumer, a listener, a watcher of the show, this is going to sound very weird, but we need to filter. We need to filter what we consume. Otherwise, it's going to start changing how we view things, and it's going to make us depressed. I literally have to turn off social media sometimes, not because of politics. Well, that too, but not because of politics. But really in Star Citizen, like sometimes the community is just dark. And I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just a lot, right? Choose what you put into your system. All right, Wandering Marauder writes, I love a good special edition paint that can't be bought, like the MSR Night Runner, which is hands down, this is me, not him, hands down, the Night Runner paint for the MSR, best in the game. Absolutely the best paint job in the game. But I think being able to customize the livery of your ship in game is what most players will prefer in the long run. That actually hits on exactly what I said a couple minutes ago. Yeah, if I can make every ship in my hangar look like the Night Runner paint, done. Maybe not even the Night Runner paint, like maybe most Night Runner paint, but like blacks with reds, like you heard on the last episode. Give me a black base with red highlights, done. Sickest looking hangar out there. All right, Prime Entity writes, I love the concept for the Zeus Mark II, but I feel it should be from Crusader Industries. It looks too modern for RSI. Short one today, but thanks. Oh, and sorry for getting the cutter last week. I'll make 2 this week. So thank you for not giving me any cutter images. I appreciate that. My response to RSI. So here's my response to RSI. And somebody else on YouTube made a similar comment, and I said to him what I'm about to say to you. I actually disagree. I think if you look at the Galaxy, like look at the RSI Galaxy and the RSI Perseus. First off, they look very similar. They look almost like the exact same ship here. Let's just do this real time. I'm already sharing my screen, so let's do explore. What is it now? It's all different now. So shop, I gotta get a pledge store. And then once you get a pledge store, I think then you can choose ships. Yep. All right, so let's do this. Let's look up the Galaxy. All right, so see how the Galaxy is very squished. It's very like, it's flattened. It's flattened and it's angular and it's pointing forward. It's kind of aggressive in that stance, right? It's got that interceptor aggressive stance. So here's the Galaxy, again, angular, pointed at the front. It's nice and slender, like Roger. Now let's take a look at the Perseus. You're gonna find a lot of similarities. Here we go. So again, the Perseus, where it's maybe fatter on the back, right? It's got some weight to it, right? It's got some girth in the back there. But if you notice the rest of it, it's still angled, it's still forward, still aggressive. It's still very interceptor-like. So what I see as the Zeus is like a smaller version of the Galaxy. So again, this is the Perseus. Let's take a look at the Zeus as I mistype, and you're seeing my amazing typing skills. So here we go. Let's look specifically at the Zeus Mark II MR. Right? Again, this basically looks like the Galaxy. It's flattened, it's angular, everything's pointing forward. So, I don't know. I personally see a lot of similarities with this RSI. Now, does it look like a constellation? Absolutely not. I think it has molded over time. I think this is the future of RSI. The future of RSI is the Perseus, the Galaxy, the Zeus. I think that design language is going to persist with RSI moving forward. My personal opinion. Sean Donovan writes, personally, I don't really use paints, but they are nice when I want to switch up looks on ships after using them for a while. 100% agree. P.S. If it's not too late to ask, can you put a pastable link invite to the Discord server? Okay, I need to actually respond to this. And actually, as I do this, I'll do it later. But for Sean Donovan and anybody else, it's www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. That will give you our Spectrum org page for Sol Provision right there on the very top. Like right there on the very top. Let me just keep on demonstrating here. Right here on the very top is a link. Welcome to Sol Provision's official Spectrum channel, and right here, Discord, Twitter, Instagram. So just click on Discord. That is a direct link to join our organization. You're going to want to live in Discord. We don't do anything on Spectrum until they mature that and it's a better product. For org play, I don't want to be disrespectful, but we live in Discord at this current moment. So that link right there will get you there. I will also put that link directly into the response. And then last but not least, literally 30 minutes ago, so we got you, Jason. Jason writes, I bought 2 packs, LOL. So he's talking about the goodies pack question on the poll. He ended up buying 2. My question for you, Jason, is why? Well, why'd you buy 2 packs? Like, are you gonna put like 2 of the same rifles on your back? That's not me like judging you. I'm literally curious why someone would buy 2 packs unless you plan on giving it away to somebody, which I think you can do. Yeah. So very curious on that, Jason. But like always, please email us, get onto the Spotify to answer the poll, to send us your comments. And again, we will always read your comments, good, bad, the ugly, and I'll react as best I can to each one of those. Let's get into This Week in Star Citizen. Let's get going. Sharing my screen for those of you on YouTube. Happy Monday, everyone. This past weekend, our team attended an incredible Bar Citizen event in Marina Grande, Portugal. We quickly discovered that the local community certainly know how to have a great time. Huge thank you to everyone who stopped by and contributed to making it an unforgettable day. Don't miss the photo gallery below for a glimpse of the event. Meanwhile, CitizenCon 2954 is on the horizon. Guys, it's like 3 or 4 weeks away. Like, it's right now, it's September 13th. It's next month. That's crazy how close we are. If you're unable to attend in person in Manchester, the Digital Goodies Pack offers all the digital items that come with a CitizenCon 2954 ticket, including a few items that will be unveiled and developed live during the event. Can you believe that we're less than 40 days away? Speaking of CitizenCon, don't forget to check out both the community-organized Bar Citizen events taking place throughout the week of the show, alongside what's shaping up to be an extraordinary esports event with Atmo Esports. Back in the verse, things are heating up as the battle for Jumptown's drug labs rage on. Okay, you have until September 12th to jump into the fray, which I think they extended. I don't know, let's find out. For some reason, I was thinking they extended it. Before I lie to my viewers and listeners, let's look at it. September 12th. Nope, it's done as of yesterday, so it is not live at the recording of this show. All right. Finally, Alpha 324.1 is now in the public test universe, including the Argo ATLS power suit unlocked for all backers to test. And y'all, we will go through those patch notes and kind of discuss the Atlas, but this dropped like after I recorded on Friday. So I recorded my episode on Friday. They make this huge ass announcement just in time for Space Tomatoes podcast on Saturday. So I didn't get to talk about it last Friday, but we sort of mentioned it a little bit on Saturday's show with Space Tomato. All right, for this week, listing it off, it's very, like I said, at the top of this podcast. If you just look at this, it seemed like not a lot happened, but on the back end, we actually did. According to this, Tuesday we had a lore post. It was Whitley's guy that was actually on the Prowler. Then we have Wednesday, August 2024, good Lord, Squadron 42 monthly report. My brain could not compute those numbers in that one sentence. Yesterday we had the Inside Star Citizen, which I already told you was the Zeus and the MFD updates. And then today, actually before this show, we have the Star Citizen live as well. So again, not a lot going on this week on face value, but there was a lot on the back end. And so, like I said, Friday afternoon, Friday night, over the weekend, we had this Argo ATLS drop with these tags, or with reference being made to 324.1. So 324.1 is upcoming. We know it's the Argo ATLS. We also know it's Blockade Runner. So you're going to get a new global event, and you're going to get the Argo ATLS. Now, I need to confirm what I can and cannot say on podcast. I am now proud to announce that I am supporting CIG as a content creator officially for them. So it's super awesome. I'm excited to be doing this, but we're getting some email correspondence on how to participate and be part of ship giveaways, and more to come. I just want to lay that out there. But there was a lot of intel in this last email, and I think I'm okay saying that Blockade Runner is coming in this next patch. For upcoming events. So that is going to be part of this. The Atlas is going to be part of this. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Zeus is not. Zeus is not going to make an appearance in this first patch. But right now on the PTU, you can go in, anybody can go in and experience the Argo Atlas. It's freaking amazing. It is really, really well done. And you might be thinking to yourself, I have a one-hander, tractor beam. I've got the two-hander tractor beam. I'm okay. I don't need it. Trust me. The moment you get into one of these and you realize how much more efficient it is to move a box from your freight elevator into the cargo grid on your C2, game changing. Absolutely game changing. What usually takes 10-15 minutes to load a senior rank mission onto a C2, you could probably do significantly shorter. So it's very impressive. It's a lot faster. You move around a lot slower. Like, it doesn't make you go faster, but the amount of time it takes for you to attract to a box, to get it out of that cargo grid and to put it into a new cargo grid is within seconds. Within probably 5 seconds of the freight elevator to your C2. Incredible. But that's what's being tested right now, is the stability and bug fixes, and again, the Argo Atlas. Just wanted to show y'all, and I realized I was not sharing my screen, so for those of you on YouTube, I am now sharing my screen. Here you go. It's nothing aesthetically pleasing, it's just the patch notes. So if you want to learn more, you can read this. Again, forum categories, patch notes, available to everybody if you have a CIG account. Or a Robert Space Industries account. And there's some bug fixes. Nothing that really stood out to me is like, yay, they finally fixed elevators. Elevators are still scary, believe it or not. While we're here, let's just go straight into probably one of the more dramatic. Before we do that, actually, let's do this. Before I put y'all into the upcoming ship and vehicle loadout changes, I want to react real quick to the tech preview channel. So yesterday we had a quote-unquote 24-hour test of the tech preview channel. This is the RMQ meshing player test. Okay, what does this all mean? I am going to dumb this down, not because I think you're not intelligent enough to understand it. This is not to belittle you, but it's just to simplify the conversation. To go from 150 people to 1,000. Done. That's really all you need to know. There's some pretty sexy things in the background of like how the pillars work and how the communication between shit works. At the end of the day, that's all you need to know. All you need to know is right now we are capped out at like just over 100 people, and we are able, like shards, and we are able to now get into 600. We're able to get to 1,000. And so this play test was to put new shards or new builds. I'm going to call them shards. I'm going to call them builds. They forced all the tech preview players into like a single shard. And so the first one went out, that's shard like 010. I didn't get to join until shard 040. And so one would go for a couple minutes and then crash and fail. And so they would shut down, they would 30K. They would 30K the 010, and then everybody relogging in would get put into the 020. And so you would go to 1, 2, 3. I jumped in at 4. Then when that crashed, I went over to 5, and I stopped there because of work and family and everything else. So my experience was pretty positive. Again, you accept the risk of the tech preview channel on your own. Like you know that this is not going to be a pleasant experience, but you're going to like be part of the numbers, to be part of the test, to like drive CIG to get those data points, right? It's very important. That's why we're alpha testers in theory, right? We're here to kind of test and break the game. Sometimes it's easier than other times, but it went well. I picked New Babbage. Don't know why. I just randomly did. Picked New Babbage. It took me a while to get out of my habitation, but we got out into the hallway, and then that was it for me. I couldn't get into the elevator. I really couldn't do anything. In fact, from the people that I follow and the people in general chat and the people that I asked, no one was able to get into their ship and fly away. I'm not saying no one period was able to, but no one I know was able to get into their ship and fly away. Now that could be by design. It could be because CIG wanted to force everybody to kind of stay in a nuclear area to see what the density did to the servers. Maybe, I don't know. I don't have any data or intelligence to say that that's the case, but it makes sense to me. But that was it. It was nothing sexy. It was nothing crazy. But what I will tell you from a results perspective, now CIG has not come out and given results. They haven't given an after action review. But from what I was looking at, so like you hit your, it's called the tilde key, TILDE. You hit your tilde key and you type in like R display info number 2. So number 2 includes the shard information. 1 just gives you the frames per second. So R display info 2. And so you were able to see what shard you were on, the frames per second, wherever you were. And mine was good. New Babbage, at the time I was testing it, it was 1,000 people. So 1,000 people in New Babbage, or at least I was in New Babbage, and we had 32, 33 averaged frames per second. It's not bad. Now, not everybody chose New Babbage. I get it, Roger. But it wasn't that bad of an experience. It eventually crashed and they went down to 600, but that sweet spot was like that 600 to 1,000. I cannot wait until we hear from CIG on the overall report. What did we learn? I would love to hear what CIG learned from this event. As technical as they can possibly be. A lot of us can handle the technicality. Like, please give us everything. What made them break? Why did we go from 1,000 back to 600? Why 600? Why is that the magic number? I would love to hear all of it. And maybe it's its own segment at CitizenCon. Maybe we'll hear more about, this RMQ test. So, I don't know. Very interesting stuff. I wanted to go into that before we get into the upcoming ship and vehicle loadout changes. So without further ado, start the drama. Here we go. Let me just read the article from John Crew himself, and then I'll get into the reactions. Here we go. Upcoming ship and vehicle loadout changes. Hey y'all. As part of the ongoing development of vehicle systems, particularly with resource network and engineering gameplay on the horizon, we've taken the opportunity to look across all our current vehicles in-game and revisit some of them in terms of both default item size and quantity. Reviewing both player feedback as well as analytics on usage and performance, it was clear that some ships and vehicles were underperforming and needed adjustment. Some vehicles were adjusted to bring them in line with others in their class to ensure competitiveness, and some were adjusted because they simply had an abundance of power output that wasn't necessary anymore. You may have noticed recent vehicle promotions and releases have strayed away from the typical max 1 to 2 power plants, coolers, shield generators, to higher numbers such as the Zeus and the Retaliator having 4 to 6 shield generators, for example. And these updates will roll out similar changes across other ships and vehicles. In addition to the changes below, you can also expect handling and health changes to some vehicles to make sure they do not stray too far from their intended design behavior. The Redeemer, for example, will get a buff in flight handling to compensate for the reduced shields and weaponry. Paul, or the Astra Historian, is going to love to hear that his favorite ship, the Redeemer, is getting a good buff. The following are the new default sizes and amounts for the specified item types per ship. Example, if something now says 1 times S2 power plant, that means it now only has a single S2 power plant rather than gaining an additional S2 on top of its current live loadout. Weapon changes are specifically listed for the relevant hardpoints. Now, this is a super long list. No, we're not going through every single one of them. But Reclaimer, Redeemer, Vanguard, Carrack, Gladiator, Hurricane, Valkyrie, MP, UV, the Mole, Raft, Mustangs, the Starlifter, Star Runners, Caterpillar, Buccaneer, Vulture, Prowler, Freelancer, the Holes, Prospector, Starfarer, 350R, 400i, 85X, M50, and the Constellation. I'm not going to go through what changed. That's too much. But if you heard a ship that interests you, go to forum categories, go to general, and look up this article. It's a lot. It is a lot of information. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on them rebalancing ships? I mean, it's necessary. It absolutely needs to happen, of course. I immediately go to the cost to upgrade. I hope the economy changes, because buying 6 shield generators. See, the Zeus and the Retaliator now having 4 to 6 shield generators. That's going to be expensive. That's going to be very, very expensive. So I'm curious, like at some point, the economy team is going to have their hands full, because you have new game loops. You're going to have multi-systems, Pyro and Stanton. You're going to have the new balancing of, vehicle let-out changes. Ooh, it's going to have to make sense. I don't want to have to do 100 cargo hauling missions to buy 1 shield generator upgrade for my ships. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? I'm curious. Maybe that's your poll for the day. Thoughts about upcoming ship and vehicle layout changes. Actually, put that in the comment section. The poll for today is more than likely going to be your thoughts on the MFD, and we'll get into that with Inside Star Citizen literally right now. Here we go to the article. Inside Star Citizen, the Zeus and MFDs. They even titled this Alpha 324.2. So let me just pause. I'm going to have a listener. I'm going to have a viewer who's going to put a comment in my comment section of like, they didn't actually promise it to be 3. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. If you're looking at my screen right now, it says Alpha 324.2. What is the other reason they would put that? We don't even have .1 out yet. This is them promising that we will have the Zeus and MFD updates, not this next patch, which is probably next week, but the one after. Quote, with the release just on the horizon, join us today for an in-depth look at the current state of the first 2 RSI Zeus Mark II variants. Plus, get a sneak peek at the new interface changes coming with the MFD rework. And without further ado, let's go. Let's get into this.
First introduced at last year's CitizenCon, the RSI Zeus is steadily working its way through the ship pipeline to its intended release. And on this week's show, we'll take a look at 2 of its variants, as well as the new MFD rework that you've seen glimpses of here and there. It's a multifunctional show. Let's get to it.
I'm going to say it again before this gets started. This replaces your everydayer. After watching this, let's debate it. This will be in the comment section. Let's debate it. This will replace your everyday vehicle. Whether you're a Drake fan or a Crusader fan, nothing is going to beat the aesthetics and capability of the Zeus CL, for instance. I hope you enjoy this video.
The RSI Zeus Mark II is a reimagining of the original RSI Zeus. The Zeus was the first mass-made human exploration ship that was capable of doing quantum travel.
We didn't want to just make the Zeus again. We wanted to kind of pay homage to what made the Zeus important, what made it iconic back then. We wanted to kind of give that an update and kind of bring it up to modern day visuals and make sure it really feels RSI.
It's RSI style, but we feel it's almost a improvement upon the style. It's sort of an evolution of the style. And so players will appreciate the consistency with other RSI ships, but you can see the technological advancement of RSI.
You may remember the Zeus from our episode in Jump Points a few weeks ago on Inside Star Citizen.
It was very good.
It was very good, Jared tells me. The Zeuses are a...
I have to pause it on the screen. So like this is your screenshot. This is it. You got the white with obviously the dark grays, light grays, accents, but the little gold outlining, right? So or maybe even the more accented is gold. So you have white base with a dark light gray and like copper. Beautiful. It's gorgeous for an exploration ship. I love it. It looks really good. But then this is what I was talking about earlier. Like the CL, the one on the left, the blue with the yellow highlights. I mean, I could see that. I could absolutely see that in real life as like being a cargo variant. But even that, it almost reminds me of the Invictus paints, right? The Invictus paints are blue and gold and blue and yellow. I see some resemblance there. But there's just the design language is beautiful on it, stunning. Like this, it's just a very well done ship.
Great stepping stone ship. So you've got your starter ship originally, you've dipped your toes in a few gameplay loops and you just want to be able to do a bit more. The Zeuses allow you to do that with some friends.
So yeah, it supports up to 3 crew members, but you can fly it yourself if you want. And if you've got a buddy, they can man the turrets.
The Zeuses for me are probably some of the best looking ships we've ever produced for Star Citizen. I think they really set a new visual standard in both their shape and style.
100%.
So when we release the Zeus, it comes with both the ES and the CL both together in the same patch. The ES is the exploration focused variant of the Zeus, so it has a modest sized cargo bay, larger hydrogen and quantum fuel tanks, a larger radar and a more spacious living area. The CL, the cargo version, maximizes its cargo capacity. It does that by shunting the sort of central bulkhead towards the front of the ship, so that increases the cargo capacity from 32 to 128 SCU at the expense of just really cramming in the living quarters to be much more compact.
The exterior of the Zeus ES has got that very kind of iconic RSI arrowhead shape.
We tried to stick to what was like the homage that the concept made of the first Zeus.
It keeps the kind of central fuselage. You've got this big kind of central mass with these lovely kind of quite fast and aggressive looking wings. And they kind of just help to make it feel quite aggressive and quite sharp, which I think builds on what RSI as a brand are kind of really about.
The big details on the flat surfaces, the mix of materials, I think is very well balanced.
I'm still a massive fan of the underside. Undersides of our ships sometimes get a little bit underlooked or overlooked. But I think the underside, the belly, originally the plan was for it to be kind of completely smooth and completely all one surface, but as we started to work it up, the artists that were working on it were kind of like, oh yeah, can we add a little bit of recesses, can we add a little bit of relief into this shape just to kind of help build on the believability, and I think it was a real success.
So weaponry-wise, across all of them, the pilot has access to twin size 4 guns.
Enemy down.
And the side seats have access to the remote turrets.
When we look at the difference between the ES and the cargo, with the cargo we wanted to add a little bit more structure and believability into the exterior of the ship. This is supposed to carry a lot more weight, so we wanted to kind of bulk up the main structural points. So we've got some large additional bracing down the center. And then the other thing that a cargo version is going to require is some additional thrust. So we want to kind of bulk up the main thrusters at the rear that allow you to kind of take off. And those kind of downward pointing thrusters have grown in size and add to that believability that this vehicle can lift a bit more weight than the base version. So So if we start at the front of the ship, it's quite a tight space. One of the things that we kind of really realized early on with the vehicle is...
If you're watching this, let me see if I can go back 10 seconds. I gotta go ahead. I gotta go ahead a couple. Hold on. Stand by. Can I get it? No, I'm not gonna be able to get it. Here, let me do this and I'll hit play again. I want to show y'all.
So if we start at the front of the ship, it's quite a tight space. One of the things that we kind of really realized...
Boom. New MFDs. So, yes, we're going to have a whole part of this in Inside Star Citizen, but this is why they're releasing at the same time. The Zeus was designed with the new MFDs in mind. So on the bottom left and the bottom right, you see those new screens. Yeah, it's really the difference. Have y'all seen the image comparison of like the NASA, like old school Apollo, cockpits, but then this new SpaceX, the one that just went up into space a couple of days ago and is still up in space? It's like a bunch of like iPad screens. I feel like that's what's happening. We're getting an upgrade from NASA's old school, green and yellow screens to a really good looking system. But just wanted to showcase, like, this is kind of the why the Zeus was never really designed with the old MFDs in mind. It's got the new MFDs. So there you go.
Early on with the vehicle is that we crammed a lot of stuff into the space that we had to play with. So the cockpit is quite tight. You've got a nice kind of 3-person cockpit up the front. And the seating arrangement echoes that kind of arrow shape that we see on the exterior of the ship. And that just helps to make the pilot have the important up front seat, but also just ties everything together a little bit, which is lovely. As we go back through the ship, we go into the airlock and the engineering area. This area changed quite a bit during the vehicle's development. We actually opened this space up a little bit. We took out one of the bulkheads. One of the things we realized as we kind of got into production was that there was maybe a few too many doors. This really was the ideal place to kind of remove one of those and open that area up a little bit. So we've got this engineering section that has the kind of main docking collar and also has the ladder exit. So we've got our kind of 2 front exits on the vehicle. And then as we go back through the corridor section, we have like a bit of a crossroads. So you can either go into the kitchen area, which still has its nice window and looks out and it's beautiful and perfect. Or on the right, we've got the habitation area where we've got 3 beds, toilet, a nice little seating area, lockers, and everything you need really in terms of a hab.
Get out, get out, get out!
And then as we go into the back of the ship, that's really where we get to our larger ship components and our cargo area. With the cargo version, the Clipper, there's obviously a lot more space dedicated to cargo compared to the base version. To achieve that, what we've had to do is adjust some of the kind of like the rear layout of the ships.
We had to rearrange the components so that they're closer up to the doorway, and we had to move the weapon locker from the corridor into the actual cargo holds, so there was a lot of rearranging.
But what that does buy us is enough space to fit the kind of extra cargo in. We've also had to sacrifice some of the kitchen area. In the habitation, you lose the sofa and the nice seating area, but on the positive, we get much more cargo space, which for kind of a dedicated cargo ship is the most important thing.
You'll notice that on the floor, there'll be blue trimming exactly where the player can place cargo. It'll be a lot easier for the player to know where you can access the components versus where you can place cargo on the sides.
This has been a great first full ship from concept to release for the Montreal vehicle team.
This is one ship that took an entire year to build. Like, the amount of work that goes into these ships is insane, both in art and design.
They built on kind of what they'd learned with the cutters and really just done a fantastic job in taking what was the original vision of the ship and really delivering it in something that I think it looks great, it should play great, and I think they just did a fantastic job across the board.
To me, the final product shows there's nothing in any other game that can come close to the level of detail, the amount of thought that got put into every button, every component bay, everything, is in its place.
So the Zeus is another great addition to the fleet of ships in Star Citizen, and being RSI, it obviously has that special touch, sharing the name with our company and founder. And we are excited to see this ship set foot in the verse and push along the RSI style ahead of a big year for RSI ships.
Ships don't set foot, John, they fly.
Got their feet.
just being argumentative.
The MFDs and the ship HUD and the PU, it's old.
And the actual UI itself is very small. One color, they're all in one color. Text is too small to read.
It's very samey, right? It has a bunch of stuff on it that you don't really use.
Not very new user-friendly.
Any user-friendly.
Yeah. Any user-friendly.
It was good for its time. It did the job. It got us where we are today.
But it's time for something new, and that's what we're going to talk about.
The reason why we're doing this now is because we had a lot of time during the development of Squadron to create an expandable and a more robust system for MFDs.
We have a bunch of super nice MFDs ready for Squadron, and now we're moving them over to Star Citizen.
It's also really good to bring it over now because we've got the new resource network system, so we need to have the MFDs here to support.
That looks good. So I paused it on what like the future of your layout looks like. This looks good. Very well done. Sincerely, very well done, team.
Support that new gameplay. Initial release, there'll be 5 visual styles to the MFDs and the HUDs.
There's Aegis.
It's very militaristic and it's very sleek. Anvil is great. I love the green color of Anvil. It feels a lot more like an F-16 cockpit. Drake is my favorite. It's retro and Blade Runner and CRTs.
There's Argo.
It really feels like a piece of industrial equipment, which is what the brand is going for.
And there's the generic style that will support all the other ship manufacturers for the time being. For this release, the MFDs are getting 9 different views. Oh, how many is that even? Well, let's go through it.
We'll start with self-status. Self-status includes all of the critical information about your ship dependent on your current operator mode. So you'll have your ammo numbers in guns mode, you'll have your missile arming in missile mode, and your fuel readouts in quantum mode. There's also a unique version for turrets as well.
We have taken away a lot of, well, faff from there. So this is simpler than before.
It's more condensed and it links into the new systems that have been developed in terms of vehicle features. For example, it shows your updated gimbal modes, and it also shows your current weapon group, which is a new thing as well. Target status is the same thing, but it gives you the information about the target that you have currently selected.
It's mostly going to be, for a lot of players, the ship holo. You're going to want to see, am I dealing some damage or not? You will also have the emissions, so you know what missile to use against them. And you will see their names, so you know that you're not shooting the wrong person.
It's not as much information, because obviously, if you want to see how much ammo they've got, you've got to scan them. But it will show you their health, it will show you their faction, it will show you their velocity. Weapon config is entirely new. It links into the new weapon grouping system, so it will list out every single weapon on your ship. The ammo that you have, they'll light up if they're selected, and also it allows you to assign them to one of 4 custom groups, so you can have any combination of weapons that you want firing at the same time, and it makes it easy to see which group of weapons you're firing.
And if you just don't assign one of those groups, if you feel like, well, 4's too many, I just use 2 anyway, well, you can just assign to 2 of them, and you'll be fine.
This will be valuable so the player can, in combat, switch between different modes depending on kind of distance and what kind of weapons they want to use.
On a day-to-day, you might be tracking down a particular target. It is a subject of a mission, and you know that a certain weapon is going to be more effective against them than another, or a certain weapon combination is going to be more effective. You can stick them all in one group and have quick access to that. Shields is pretty much the same as what it was. You can control each of your shield faces if you have 4 shield faces. If you have 1, you can control the whole thing. And it gives you a reset button, so you can set it all back to default, and also you can see your total shield usage out of the maximum.
For the time being, this is going to be the same thing that you're already used to.
And along with that are scanning and communications. Scanning's been moved from the HUD to an MFD state. For new screens, the biggest one is power management.
Engines on.
It's a simplified version of what you'll find on an engineering terminal, but it's for sort of daily use for the pilot.
It's using the full power of the resource network system, and it gives it to you right there in the pilot seat, so you can do the full assignments as you like them if you're flying solo. This is also where you will see your emissions, so if you're doing anything stealthy, you go into power management, you set your settings to low, and you will see your...
Okay, so I have to call this out. I will say this looks like Starfield. Not in a negative way, but if you're listening on podcast and thinking, I wonder what Sulyce is talking about, on power management, it looks like the power management that's on Starfield. You've got these columns, and you select how much of the column you want filled to determine where your power is going. I don't know if that's, I don't know. It's just an observation, guys. Don't kill me. Don't kill me because I mentioned the other Star game. Starfield's not all bad. Come on. But this is what I relate to. This is what I relate this image to.
Emissions adjust accordingly.
You can turn on and off different systems in the ship. You can apply different levels of power to each system. You can see your total output, how much you're using, and you can also see different status readouts for those systems. So if something has run out of power or it's offline, it'll also represent that on the power management MFD.
Engines off.
Along with that is the diagnostics view.
The diagnostics view is where you go to check in on your ship. If something's not feeling right, well, maybe check diagnostics.
It will show you the wear that component has taken, as well as its current health and its status, whether it has any errors, and there'll be a summary at the top of the screen that shows you how many of your components have errors. And last, what I'm really excited about is the configuration screen. It takes a lot of the settings that were hidden away in the options menu or just in the back end and puts them right there for you to toggle in-world on your MFD screen instantly.
The configuration view is great. You can now turn off unwanted UI if you really wish to. You can turn off the cast, which is my favorite part. If you have screens on the top left and top right of your screen, then you can turn off those casts now to clear the UI a little bit.
So this configuration screen allows you to configure a few aspects of some different MFD states, as well as what goes on your HUD and how that looks.
You can finally control what goes on our HUD?
We can finally control what goes on our HUD, yeah. So let's talk about the HUD. Using the configuration screen, you can choose whether or not you're showing your MFD casts, which are simplified and more tactile versions of the self-status and target status screen.
Functionality-wise, it's stuff you know already. You have your velocity, you have your afterburner, you have your annunciators, and you have different indicators.
They show critical information when you can't look at your dashboard in front of you. So if you're in a fighter and you're looking up in the sky, you can still see that, as well as allowing you to still see that information when you're in precision targeting mode.
We've decided to clear up all of the nonsense we have in the middle and kind of make it out of the way of the middle of the screen. So
what took so long, Joe?
I'm sorry. It wasn't me. Oh, God.
We've also done a little bit of work making the radar and the HUD feel more diegetic and making it look like it actually exists in the cockpit with grounding effects and emission rate origin points as well.
It all just feels so much better. It feels real. So with this new ship and vehicle HUD, it's just going to be a clearer experience overall. It's going to be clearer in the sense that you don't have stuff in your face all the time. It's going to be clearer in the sense that you can actually read the UI. So I think you'll be very happy with it. It's going to be such a nice thing to just be out in space and be able to see space, right?
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Zeus is the first ship made by the newly established Montreal vehicle team. that the MFD rework is an exciting and easily usable and customizable upgrade to what we've had before, and that it plugs nicely into the upcoming resource network and engineering work scheduled for Alpha 4.0, which will, of course, we'll be showcasing next week. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. Thanks for letting us share the people and process of game development with you, and we'll see you all here next week.
There you go. Great video. No, so I agree. The MFDs needed work. It was always kind of a convoluted mess when you'd get into a ship. It wasn't like a lot of synergy. I hate using that word, but nothing flowed right. And seeing what they're proposing, the 9 different versions or the different screens that they've produced, it looks phenomenal. And so yes, it is an aesthetic or it's a cosmetic update. It might not necessarily change whether or not you get back into the game or your enjoyment of the game, but it's one of those absolute necessary steps before we start talking about 4.0 and 1.0 and Squadron 42. So love everything about what we just saw. Quickly, like I said, we did have the Asperia Prowler, Whitley's Guide. We're not going to go through that, but it talks about the Tavaran Wars, how we got this alien ship post-Tavaran War, and what it all means. I'm very convinced that there's still an issue with the Prowler. I think the last time I tried it, though, to be very fair, the last time I tried it was last Alien Week, and I haven't seen any notes that they did fix it. But there was just a lot of issues of the back, the deployment area of the of your army or your team. I hope they fixed it. Not going to get into that. But let's get into Squadron 42. Again, this is one of the main... Goodness, my screen is jacked up. This is one of the main reasons why I wanted to cover this, is because I believe, and I'll say this one last time, CitizenCon, the theme is a Bengal carrier. Now, yes, Bengal carriers exist in Star Citizen. That's fine. I think that this is going to be the year of Squadron 42. I think you're going to walk in and it's going to be decorated in that design, in that decoration. And I think we'll be able to have a playable version like we did in the test preview channel for Pyro. I think there's going to be a playable version there at CitizenCon of Squadron 42. I don't know about an alpha testing, beta testing. Like, I think we've done enough of that. I feel like Star Citizen was the alpha testing for Squadron 42. So I don't know if there's going to be a chance for us to play this before it goes live, but I think next year's the year, 2025, they'll come out with Squadron 42, but we'll get all the intel at CitizenCon, the publication release, the media efforts, timelines, etc. So I'm going to read the Squadron 42 monthly report. It might very well be the last time that I read a Squadron 42 monthly report on one of our Beyond the Verse podcast shows, because they are so close to being done. So let's get into it. Look, I'm on the first subject, and I'm already almost halfway done on the scroller. So here we go. Let me switch my screen where you can see the whole thing. All right, AI features. Throughout August, AI features focused on polishing existing functionality to improve level flow. For example, during buddy sections where players are aided by AI characters, the team increased and improved the control mechanisms available to the designers so that they can increase situational awareness. This means that AI characters no longer automatically crouch and draw a weapon when enemies are nearby. This is now a behavior that's controllable by a designer who can determine the best place for this to occur. A new follow-along path task was added alongside the lead-along path task, allowing the designer to guide AI while simultaneously keeping up with the player. They're also improving tech to control when the buddy joins in combat to provide more level-specific situational awareness. AI features also polished various reactions, including the first reactions when NPCs respond to audio or visual events. While these behaviors had a solid base, some combat styles, weapons, and scenarios didn't play consistently. For example, when escalating from a low reaction to a high reaction. To improve this, the team developed a new AI test level called a test cell. This is a building block setup with different character types, weapons, cover options, usables, etc. that allows the team to pick and mix different setups to produce consistent test scenarios. A particular combination can be exported as one cell and imported into a single level where multiple test scenarios can be played simultaneously, allowing the team to quickly spot mistakes, fix them, and retest. The test cell is also being used for cover hit reactions, which have different animation setups per cover type, combat style, and weapon type. Going forward, the test cell will be expanded to provide more consistency across a wider range of areas. AI tech. Alongside small improvements in bug fixing, AI Tech worked on editor functionality to allow the designers to set scheduled game tags and assign action areas directly to NPCs. Secondly, they worked on a subsumption task and flow graph node to enable or disable navigation cost areas and modify their costs. AI Social Strike Team. The AI Social Strike team spent part of August refining idle animations for desk workers. This work adds greater variety to the NPCs seated at consoles, significantly reducing noticeable repetition when multiple characters are positioned next to each other. They then expanded the advanced animation set used for repairing and inspecting the Gladius and Hornet. These more advanced and realistic animations move away from basic motions, adding depth and believability to the repair and inspection activities. Continuing from last month, the devs made significant progress refining various interactions throughout the game. As part of this, numerous non-essential interactions were removed to prevent confusion about what can and should be interacted with. This clear delineation ensures that when something is interactable, it serves a meaningful gameplay purpose. This step is crucial to maintaining intuitive game mechanics and enhancing the overall player experience. Work was also done to improve the cargo handling AI. For example, the utility behavior for AI involved in cargo handling was updated to allow multiple AI characters, not using trolleys, to move cargo from the same pickup location to the same drop-off area. Previously, only one AI character could perform this action at a time, resulting in an illogical sequence of events. With this new update, cargo movement now appears more realistic and dynamic, adding a layer of authenticity to the environment. Following an art pass on cargo in the Shubin location, the CAV vehicle's AI was repathed. This update ensures that the vehicle's movement aligned perfectly with the new cargo layout. Finally, for social AI, numerous smaller bug fixes and improvements were made across the campaign. AI, Game Intelligence Development Team. There's a lot of AI updates. In August, the Game Intelligence Development Team concentrated on delivering a clean and stable Apollo StarScript UX update. This involved adding support for higher icon resolution so they stay sharp when zoomed in and straightening lines for a clearer read. Drag and drop was improved as well. Now when hovering, ports with a wider selection range are highlighted. The devs corrected the color and size of imported notes, added arrowheads to links, leading to closed groups, and enlarged the hovering area and highlights on links and ports. Drop points were also added to links to identify the desired select line. Animation. Last month, the gameplay animation team worked on zero-G movement on surfaces, weapon first selects and overheats, improved pickups, scene-specific player interactions, and numerous background animations for life around a key location. Significant progress was also made on a number of human enemy types. On the mocap side, motion capture side, the team supported gameplay and story needs with capture shoots and solve data. They also supported the motion capture team so they can be even more efficient and knowledgeable on future shoots. The gameplay and gameplay animation teams then joined forces to use their expertise in retargeting to get faster traction on some upcoming asset sets. The team are currently working on the final facial animation solves for Squadron 42 before pivoting to fleshing out background AI and improving high-profile story scenes. Graphics and VFX programming. Alongside ongoing stability and performance improvements for Vulkan, the graphics team improved debug tooling for the long-term health of the dev experience. For global illumination, support was added for high-gloss specular reflections, which builds on previous rough specular work. The team also added live updates to GPU ray tracing acceleration structures and began working on improvements to transparent objects. Performance-wise, the global illumination system now supports both temporal and spatial subsampling to accumulate the same visual result with fewer rays fired per frame. Ongoing tasks consist of async creation and additional types of destructible renderer objects, such as gas cloud chunks, to reduce frame time spikes on the CPU. Squadron 42's main fire hazard system wrapped, with the team moving to bug fixes and design balancing. They're nearly finished with data conversion for better particle effect management, while various performance enhancements are in progress. I love reading Squadron 42's main fire hazard system wrapped. It's so cool to see some of these things, done. Narrative. Toward the end of summer, Narrative continued working with core gameplay to refine the number of Galactopedia entries and identify where they will unlock. The aim for the next few months is to lock down the first half of the game from an entry point of view, which will enable the team to fully test the experience and make sure players receive an enjoyable number of entries. The team also moved back to live production with pickup shooting, which involved re-recording a handful of lines for a supporting character. Narrative also supported the audio department in a Walla session. Quote, "If you haven't heard this term before, Walla is a low, persistent series of indecipherable conversations that go alongside our scripted scenes and dynamic conversations to make areas feel more populated." End quote. Elsewhere, work continued on the in-fiction collectibles that the team is developing with outsourced artists. They also continue to regularly play through levels to review the implementation of the latest content to ensure things are triggering correctly and iterate on the overall flow. And last, visual effects. Last month, visual effects focused on polishing a selection of key scenes alongside cinematics. They also continue to support the design and art teams with ongoing level work. And there you go. Again, more than likely one of our last times to ever read through Squadron 42's monthly reports, but I hope that information comes well to you. I, again, love reading things wrapping up. I love seeing teams being reallocated to other jobs and other prospects. It's good to see this come to fruition. Again, I'm not seeing anything huge that they're working on that's going to prevent a playtest in Q4, whatever that looks like, and a release in 2025. I don't know. My copium, whatever you want to call it, is really high with Squadron 42. 4.0? I don't know. We can debate that all day long, but let's wrap this one up. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can write us at contact@beyondtheversehq.com. You can respond to the polls in the comments section in Spotify. You can follow us on all of our social media handles. That's /BTV_cast. And of course, you can watch this podcast both on Spotify video, but also over on YouTube. And that YouTube link is /BTV_cast. You can join our in-game organization called Soul Provision. Again, that's www.robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/provision. Again, we live in Discord. That gets you to the Spectrum, but you want to come over and join us on Discord. I hope this finds everybody well. Safe travels as you traverse beyond the verse. Take care, everybody.